And now we move on to our lovely Baba lover, speaker, and guest for the day, Evie Lindemann. Evie was until recently an associate professor in the Master of Arts in Art Therapy and Counseling program at the Albertus Magnus College and taught at the Yale University Sherwin B. Newland Summer Institute in Bioethics for 7 years. She has lived and worked in Afghanistan, Israel, and India and has implemented humanitarian art therapy projects in India, Jamaica, and the US. Her first trip to India was in 1970-71, and she worked with Dr. Goher for 6 months in the medical dispensary in 1983 and learned a little bit of medical Marathi. I love that. She also worked with Arnavaz on her spiritual autobiography, and at the last count, she has taken about 27 pilgrimages, she says, to India, her spiritual home. She has also written book chapters regarding her personal life and journey to Baba, with challenges along the way. Don't we have it all? In a chapter for Lauren book called Forgiveness, which we did a wonderful workshop last Saturday on, and also two book chapters for Irma Shepherd, where one of the books was entitled Tales from the Samadhi. So we have dear Evie who's going to share with us the creative ways of living in Baba's love through our adversities and challenges. Thank you, Evie, for being there with us. Thank you for sharing. Jai Meher Baba. You need to unmute, Evie.
Okay, I assume everybody can hear me. Jai Baba, everybody, and I want to thank Roshani for inviting me to come today. It's always a deep privilege to talk about Mayor Baba and how our journeys intersect along the way. Roshani and I got to know each other somewhat a few months ago because of a project that I launched in beginning here in Asheville, but really around the world, and it's called Women to Women. Stories that women have written about regarding their experiences with the women mandali. So it's true, I've spent a lot of time in India, and it's always been the place I go. I've tended not to go to Myrtle Beach. I've just tended to go to India. And I had the deep privilege of spending a great deal of time, particularly with the women mandali. So I know this is a little bit about adversity today. I want to talk some about grief and loss and the pandemic and how we live into our current circumstances and find Baba always behind the curtain. So about 4 years ago, when I was sitting in the Samadhi, I was having a little chat with Baba, as I often do when I'm there. And I was lamenting the fact that I hadn't been doing any writing, and I knew that I needed to. And I just felt a huge obstacle, but I didn't know really what it was. And so I just put that out and really asked him for help. And in a matter of about 2 seconds, often my communication with Baba is I hear him inside my heart and my mind. But this time, it wasn't only that I heard him, I also felt him. And what I felt was he put his hand up, both hands, and one pushed hard into the center of my chest. I can still actually feel that imprint. So he pushed hard there, and with great authority, but no meanness, he just ordered me to pick up my pen. And that's what happened in the Samadhi. And I can still feel that in my chest, and I still feel this kind of urgency about it. And so I came back to New Haven, where I was a professor, and it was winter and it was cold and dark, and I'd wake in the early morning. And within just a matter of a couple of days, across my email came an opportunity to write a Baba-oriented story about my journey to Baba. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Irma Shepherd's work, but she's done a lovely job of now 3 volumes of work. And her latest one, she called Tales from the Samadhi. So, and the Women to Women Storytelling Project was an offshoot of this pressure that I felt in the middle of my chest. And I still don't know really where this sense of urgency will take me. Sometimes Baba hands things off to us and we have no idea how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, and what we're going to do. But if we say yes to it, this has been my experience, the supports always come along the way and things become possible. So the urgency that I feel now has to do with, for those of us who had direct contact with the women Mandali, there's a real urgency about sharing our stories with others. And that's really why I launched the project, because it was a prompting from Baba. I couldn't possibly have dreamt this up on my own, although I do have a lot of creative ideas. This one came from him. And here's the urgency. So many of us who came to Baba in the late 60s and early 70s, we're all aging. And as I launched this second project with women that took place a couple of Saturdays ago, several of the women involved in the project are extremely ill. They are older, they are ill. And so there's a sense of these stories will be lost if they're not written down and captured. So to anybody in the audience today, if you have, the story project has now expanded to both men and women. If you have had an experience directly with the women Mandali, I would urge you to write it down and to send it to me. And Roshani knows how to reach me. I'm here in Asheville, dressed halfway between a top and my PJs on the bottom, because we can get away with that during Zoom. It's one of the freedoms of Zoom, but it's also a reminder that we'd prefer to connect with each other in person. So what I want to invite you all, rather than just talking to you, I'm hoping that you each maybe have a pen nearby and a piece of paper. It doesn't matter what you write on, it could be the back of an envelope, but just a pen or a pencil and some kind of paper. So just have that handy for yourself. And one of the ways that I engage with Baba is through my writing. So I would like to invite you, so you all came on today and you had specific ideas and reasons for why it was important for you to connect with Roshani today. I imagine many of you have been doing this week after week, and it's a lovely opportunity to share music and beautiful quotes like the one that Rosalie shared from Erich. So pick up your pen, as Baba told me to pick up mine, and just get a little quiet inside. Take a couple of deep breaths and just let yourself just find that quiet place in you that helps you to connect with Baba's love. And as you do that, just ask yourself, what is my deepest need and intention for today? It might be that you hear it in words. It might be that you feel it somehow in your body, or maybe you get an image of something. But all of those are little hints. And as you connect with that, it just in a very simple way, just let yourself jot it down. It can be single words or a phrase or a sentence. It doesn't matter what form it comes in. What matters is that you've located in yourself and you just write it down. Yeah, so just take a minute to do that. And usually when we stop and attend to something in ourselves, we get a quieter focus. And this is part of the beauty of anchoring with words or with images, with art, with dance and poetry and music. All of these avenues to love help us to get anchored in ourselves and to connect. So just take a look at what you've written down. And we're not going to share that in this moment, but I just want you to notice how it was that you did that. Because our intuition is always tapping us on the shoulder. It is always present. And I love Baba's image of the umbrella, that if the sun is shining fully, but your umbrella is hiding the warmth from you, you can't experience it. But if we put our umbrella down and we just allow ourselves just to stand in the presence of that warmth and beauty, it does usually come to us. And so from whatever part of you your intention for today came, just really appreciate how it was that it came to you, that you received something as a gift. So with that in mind, we're going to move forward a little bit. And I want to talk about the pandemic. I'm kind of a grief and loss specialist. That was my specialty in my professional life. And I continue to teach about it to mental health professionals from around the world because it's a difficult topic. And we really, our lives are really about life and living, and they are also about losing. And if we can create a space for both experiences, we open ourselves more fully, I think, to Baba's love. So a couple of things I noticed when I logged on, I heard that beautiful Begin the Begin rendering. I think it was from somebody named Jim, maybe. I hope I have that name right. But I was reminded the themes of the song are really, it's about this incredible, these moments of blissful connection. Then the song drops in tone and the singer of the song experiences this terrible separation and longing. And it's so painful and maybe makes the writer of that song kind of angry that there's been this beautiful connection and this loss of connection. And then the writer of the song turns once again to love and asks for it and beckons to it and lets it come fully in. And so in our relationships with Baba and our relationships with everybody in our lives, whether it is family, friends, medical professionals, people that we like, people that we dislike, it doesn't matter. But in those relationships, it's important to appreciate how layered our feelings are. So in Begin the Begin, right? This wonderful, wonderful feeling, that feeling of love that we all so long for with Baba. And the disappearance of that love and how it is that something of such beauty we could suddenly lose it. It's gone from our experience. And we don't know how to get back to it, but we know that those are terrible moments of suffering. And then the singer again opens the heart and reconnects with this thing. And so, particularly during the pandemic, what I have noticed is in myself and with many others that I connect with professionally, how layered our feelings are, how sorrowful we become, how sad it is that we can't see our families, even though it's the thing we want to do when they're sometimes thousands and thousands of miles away. And we're left to reflect more deeply on who we are. How do we live through this? What do we do? And in Rosalie's beautiful sharing about destruction and Erich's words, what I loved about it is how it is that through adversity and through these losses that we all experience, they provide us with opportunities, if we can open to them, of the deepest kind of treasure hunt on the planet, which is the exploration of our own souls vis-a-vis Baba's love. And it is often in the broken places where the light comes through. And I think if I had any kind of encouragement for all of us going through the pandemic, it is this, that these opportunities for deep self-reflection are not things to turn away from, although we want to because they hurt, but they are gifts, actually. And when we can find ways to embrace them with love, no matter how terrible the feeling, no matter how ugly the feeling, Baba wants it all from us. He wants it all. And there's no shame in claiming every one of those feelings, although we're socialized and we learn that we shouldn't talk about those things. And maybe it's true, sometimes we shouldn't talk about those things, but that's not a reason that we shouldn't creatively engage with them. And that's the beauty of writing and the beauty of art and the beauty of the way we move our bodies and how we listen and how things come to us intuitively, sometimes in the worst moments. So what I want to invite you to do now is to ask yourself, what during the pandemic has been lost to you? What have you lost? Because we've all had losses here. What have you lost first? And then what have you found? So with every loss comes something that we find, and sometimes there's a long stretch of time between the two. So just take a couple of deep breaths. Yeah, even close your eyes like Rosalie's doing. That's wonderful. And just connect in yourself. And these are not necessarily things you share with anybody, but write them down because Baba can hear you. So what have your losses been in this last year and a half of loss around the world? Doesn't matter how you write it down. It might be single words, it might be an image. But these are all little footprints to follow that carry you. And I'm going to mention some kinds of losses that I've been aware of during this time. And some of these may fit for you, and you may have other ones. But certainly, sometimes the loss of love when people have died that we have cared about during the pandemic, the loss of physical connection. Maybe the love continues, but there's an ache because that person is no longer in your field of reach out. The loss of certainty. The loss of assuredness that we can count on others and ourselves and our lives. The loss of knowing where we are, not just geographically, but where we are in ourselves. The loss of who we are, not recognizing the self that rises up now as being so different from the self that we knew. The loss of youth, the loss of health, the loss of beauty in all of its manifestations, the loss of knowing and planning and counting on certain particular things. These are all very deep experiences, and we feel them not just emotionally, but we feel them in our bodies. We feel them in our spiritual lives, in our intuitive knowing. We feel them in the thoughts that we have. This is all part of our living and our loving and our losing. There's a beautiful quote. I'm a Spanish speaker and I follow a lot of grief and loss practices from around the world. And this sentence came from a wonderful Latin American writer and who came from a culture that embraced loss and wasn't afraid of it. And he said that civilizations and cultures that deny death end by denying life. And so it really does matter to feel our way through our loss and our grief. And that's not the only task we have. We have other tasks too, which is to also embrace what we find. So take a look at what you've written. about the losses that you feel, and just really let yourself be present to them, feel them. Feel them in your body. Where are they located? Where do they reside? And in a way, sometimes they can feel like dangerous strangers with great beauty. Dangerous strangers because they bring up our fear and our experiences of lack of connection. But beautiful strangers because they invite us to go deeper. And I think this is always what Baba wants of us. I remember once talking about his men mandali. He said, "Do you think I want a bunch of stones around me? No, I do not. I want you to come to me with all of you, your feelings, your strengths, your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses, all of it." So just take a look at what you've written, and again, to appreciate how it is that this information comes to you and how it can inform you to live a fuller life in the midst of loss. And just take a deep breath and let that just kind of pass through you. Nice deep breath. Maybe just feel a beautiful color kind of washing through you, starting at your head and just washing through your body and falling into the earth below, just as part of who you are. And what I'd like you to do now is just shift your attention a little bit to one side or the other. And this time I want you to ask yourself, what have you gained? Certainly, there have been plenty of losses, but through those, somehow, there are also things that you've been given and things you've been gained from. And what is it that you have gained, especially during the pandemic, or maybe far before that? And let yourself just feel that question and pick up your pen, as Baba told me to do. Pick up your pen and just write, what have I gained during this time? What have I noticed anew in myself? What is different? What am I closer to? What have I been invited to know differently about myself? And where behind the curtain has Baba been hiding all this time in your life? And one thing somebody just wrote is because of the pandemic and all these Zoom sessions, right? There's been a circle of friends that we have gained. But it might be something more subtle. For me, what I've noticed is people that I have lost physically over the years have come in closer to me differently, beckoning to me, tapping me on the shoulder, and just reminding me of things that I'd forgotten. And sometimes it takes a long time to find those things, to find what you've gained. So let yourself just feel into what you've gained and where those reside in you. And just write them down simply for yourself. You can go back to it later. Again, these are like footprints that beckon us. Hmm. Some of you are writing little things into the chat box. And so one person writes that she's gained God in herself. This is a remarkable thing to find out. But we only really find those by acknowledging our losses. That's the trick. Now just take a couple of deep breaths as you just write a little bit more about what you've gained during this time from the pandemic and maybe well before the pandemic, going back in time. And I like to ask myself, yeah, okay, so as you notice some of the things that you've gained in the pandemic and you look at what you've written, just imagine another beautiful color starting above the top of your head and just letting that beautiful healing color just move through you. Maybe it moves outside your body, inside your body. Just let it wash through you like a very loving presence. Letting it wash through you, just passing through you, going down into the earth below. Yeah. And it's this kind of presence that we need at a time when so many people in the world are suffering. I'm deeply aware because India is my spiritual home. I'm in touch with people who are both from India and who are living in India, but maybe from the West. You can't help but discover on a daily basis what new petals of the pandemic are revealing and how it is that we have this, our inner life, if you put your hands together and you just kind of press on them, right? That pressure between the hands is kind of like your inner life, right? It's the thing that we have to keep returning to help us find strength. And outside of that, the exterior part of the hand is really the world at large. And these two forces are always interpenetrating each other. Oh, it's always back and forth, flowing back and forth. And sometimes we lose our balance because the outside world presses in so hard. We can't find ourselves. We get lost. We all get lost. And so we have to return then to that inner beauty, to the life we have inside ourselves, and the life that Baba has given us to help us tune in. So I want to talk a little bit now about Arnavas and my relationship with her. She wrote this incredibly beautiful book. This is, if you haven't read this book, I invite you to read it. Now, those of you who are in India have the good luck that this book, because it was published in India, is available in India. But those of us who live in the West are having a hard time getting copies of it because people have to carry it to the West for us to get it. And people are not traveling now. And so if you look on Baba websites to find it, they're not always available. But I remember long hours with Arnavas. So I met Arnavas first in 1970, and because I continued to travel to India over many pilgrimages, one of which I shared with Rosalie when she was doing her clowning days, which was lovely. I would have long conversations with Arnavas, and I would try to write down afterwards what we had talked about. And in the course of those talks, yes, her book is called Gift of God. Thank you, Yasmin. Yeah. She always encouraged me to live fully, whatever that meant for me. that my life circumstances were things to be embraced because they literally were and are my pathway to Baba. And even when I didn't want to embrace my life circumstances because they were difficult, they included a divorce and raising my beautiful son as a single mother for many years. But to live fully, what did that mean? And what I asked myself, what does it mean to live fully every day? And to love well, to open the heart. And I found in my conversations with Arnavas, she loved so well that I couldn't help but pour out my story to her and have her simply hold it for me so that I could see it differently. There were a lot of tears shed. So we have to honor those tears because they have such value. So to live fully, to love well. And this was maybe one of the most important things she gave to me, was to let go deeply, to live well, to love fully, and to let go deeply. The act of surrender, much of her spiritual autobiography is really just about that. How do we stop holding such tight control over things that honestly we can't always control? There are many circumstances now that are out of our grasp. We're not able to do it. We can't really control anything about the pandemic. All we can really control is, for some of us, I've been able to get both vaccines because I live in the United States, but I know many who would like to have the vaccine, especially in India and in some other countries. It's only on a very limited basis available. So how do we let go deeply? And I can still remember Arnavas. She had this beautiful, gentle voice, and she would say to me, just give it all to Baba, my dear. Just give it all to Baba. And how is it that we do that? I've found that surrender, it's not a one-time thing. It's like love. Love is a verb. It's really about loving. It's about that movement through our beings, through our hearts, through our bodies, through our thoughts and feelings. It is a very active and energetic and dynamic force. And so is surrender. It is a process, not until the final end of all those 8,400,000 lifetimes. It's a process. Sometimes it's on a minute by minute basis, sometimes hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. But it is always part of what we engage with when we have been invited to love Baba. So what is it to live fully, to love well, knowing that this is an impermanent state that we are all living in and through, and to let go deeply? I think that's what we are challenged to honor in our lives. That's what I'm challenged to honor. In my particular circumstances, I'll tell you just a little bit about my journey. I took a 2-year journey, starting in the United States, moving all the way across Europe, sometimes by thumb, boat, car, bus, and airplane. And I found out about Baba actually well before Baba dropped his body. I was a student at the University of California, Berkeley, where there was an active Baba group, and Robert Dreyfus, Rick Chapman, and Alan Cohen were all in the area. And Alan was my psychotherapist at the University of California Counseling Center. And behind his desk, he had an enormous picture of Mayor Baba. Enormous. I would look at this photo of this man. I had no idea who it was, who the guy was, as I called him in those days. Who is that guy? And I did ask Alan that one day, and he said just a little bit about him. So I was aware that, you know, there was this man with the beautiful eyes that had something to smile about that I couldn't possibly find in myself. I was dealing with some terrible personal losses, including the suicide of my father. And it was that death that prompted me through my own journey of loss to do all kinds of foolish and dangerous things to find some kind of basic truth. So it took me 2 years to get to Baba. But finally, I did get to Mehrabad, to Merazad, met the Mandali, met Arnavas. And it was really that journey and Baba's love that literally saved me from the worst parts of myself and helped me to find the best parts of myself. And that's really how I come to you today. One of the ways that I made meaning of that terrible loss was a very slow forgiveness process, which I wrote about in this book called Surrender. I wrote about my journey to India and about my relationship with my father. And this is decades long, this journey. So this is why I say surrender is not a one-time deal. It's a constant daily practice. I realized that it was really my father's death that got me to India. The pain was so terrible that I was pretty much willing to do anything to try to figure out if in fact there was some meaning in life. And so I think it was Baba all that time behind the curtain that I didn't know about that helped me to see something different. And so I think the creativity that enters into our lives comes from these adversities and these losses that we have. That when we can find courage in ourselves to face them, to face what they are, we then find strengths in ourselves that we didn't know we had. And my particular meaning out of loss comes from the fact that I can face other people's losses because I've had my own terrible ones. And had I not had those terrible losses, I never would have become a mental health professional, never studied grief and loss. And now I really take it as Baba's gift to me that I have opportunities to teach others about how to embrace loss and not be so frightened of it, and to find actually that it's really buried treasure. So I want to leave you with a couple of things because I know Roshani would like us to have some conversation and questions and answers. So I would say it matters to embrace what is right here and now. Just to let ourselves do it, because we can all do it. Even though we don't always, I don't often wake up some mornings, I don't know how to do it that day, but that's okay. I know that I want to, and sometimes that's good enough to embrace what is. It's also important to honor what was. To honor what was in our past, because it's all those footprints from the past that bring us here today. And finally, as we look forward, to love what will be, not knowing what that's going to bring us, to love what will be. And so here we are walking into an unfamiliar landscape. It's not the one that we knew. It's not the familiar, because our landscape has changed. All of our lives will never be the same as they were 16 months ago. And so how is our landscape different now in terms of what's been lost and what's been found? What have we found as a result as we walk into this changed landscape of our lives? One of the little tricks I do, which I'm very happy to pass along to you, is what I call letter writing. So part of how I came to the forgiveness of my father was I would write endless letters to him and read them aloud to him at his graveside. And then I would cry. And then I would burn the letters and use them in new plant life in my home. And I did it for years, more letters. And sometimes I would write letters that I would hear him sending to me from beyond the curtain of life and death. And I do the same thing with Baba. Sometimes if I feel really desperate and I'm struggling, I'll just write a dear Baba, dearest Baba letter, and I'll just pour it out. And I don't censor my thoughts. I just keep writing, keep that pen on the page until I feel completely expressed. And I give it a little time, and then I let Baba write a letter back to me. Dearest Evie. And I hear him telling me through his own beautiful words exactly what I need to embrace and hear and honor in myself. So I invite you all to try that practice. It has a kind of punch that nothing else does. I know we all love to hear stories because they bring us back to our hearts, right? But I just have one story. I'm one of millions of stories about my life with Baba. You all have your own beautiful stories with Baba. And because of launching this women's project, which I'm now encouraging men to write about, I know with absolute conviction that our stories matter because they are the footprints that lead us right back into our hearts. And finally, I think what I also try to think of every day is to embrace my vulnerability, my wounded parts, my frightened parts, my angry parts, all of the things in myself that I wouldn't necessarily share or talk about with somebody else. Sometimes they're in the most private recesses of my soul. And I'm surprised when after I write them and they're on the paper, I read them out loud so I can hear my own self speaking. Now I do this with no one else around because they're private to me, but I know Baba hears them. And he doesn't want us to hold anything back, no matter how ugly we think it is. If we can find kind ways to embrace those parts of ourselves, our woundedness is part of how we love. So it's about 10:46 now. So let's all just take a couple of deep breaths. I just want to invite you to look back at what you've written today. So you started with writing your deepest intention. I want you to go back and take a look at that. And just to appreciate the knowing part of you that knew to put that down on paper. That's your own giftedness speaking to you. Yeah, just really thank that part of you because it's always there. It's just we don't always know. And take a look at the things that you've lost during this time or stretching far back in time. And again, appreciate the part of you that could write all that down. And then take a look at what you found, what you've been given during this time. And as you look at those three things, imagine yourself drawing a very wide circle around all three of those. And as you imagine drawing a circle around those three, let yourself bring Baba right into the center of it. Feel his loving arms encouraging you. honoring you because you found the courage to express yourself truly and deeply and honestly. And then just ask yourself this question and listen to Baba's response to you. It's kind of a simple one. It's, how do I live into this time in my life now? It's simple but deep. How do I do this? And Baba may just gesture, a beautiful gesture that has meanings beyond words. Maybe it's his loving hands on your shoulders and feeling that. Maybe it's through an idea you've had that you weren't sure how to pull off. And he says, do it, do it, do it now. And I'll be with you. And let yourself just feel that. Where is that in your body? Where do you feel it? And just to note that and honor it. All right, that was a heck of a lot of work in a short amount of time. And I want to thank you all for staying with me. So what I want you to do now is just press your feet into the floor hard. Just feel your body, feel those muscles. Maybe just shake out your hands, shake out your arms. Yeah, breathe. Thank your chair for supporting you during this pandemic, your beloved chair. Ah, thank Baba for his infinite humor. Okay, so Roshani, I'm turning it back over to you.
Evie, thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful talk and sharing. That was
Oh,
really beautiful.
thank you.
Yes, and such shares just help us to remember that we are never alone. We know that, but sometimes things around us can make us feel that we are alone. And the illusion can make us dip into that zone which we don't want to go.
Yeah.
And when we meet in Baba's love, it just strengthens everything that seemed crumbling down just 5 minutes back. So thank you so much. And we'll open to any questions. We have Nihal, whose hand is already up to ask something. So we will get her to speak.
Oops. Let's
You
see.
can
Did you just
unmute now.
Oh, there you are.
did you just call Jack or what?
No, Nihal will just ask. We'll finish the talking session and we'll have Jack's sharing before we play the Meher Dhun. We'll just finish up with the questions or anything that anybody wants to ask Evie.
Evie,
Okay,
could you talk about letting go? Could you talk about letting go? Because the samskaras have such a reaction tendency over the lifetimes. And I know it's an impossible question, especially to answer in a few minutes, but I'm still going to ask it because heart to heart, soul to soul, I think a lot of us would really appreciate if you could go into some depth of how do you let go?
That's like, wow. Jeff, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Nice
yes, Evie.
to
Sorry
Jeff.
for the ma'am. Yes. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, wow. Phew. I wish there were a simple answer. And I'll tell you, my anchors for letting go are, I remember Arnavas's loving voice telling me repeatedly over the years for, I don't know, 25 or 30 years, however long I knew Arnavas. Just give it all to Baba, my dear. Give it all to Baba and open. And through that giving, something happens. But yes, we have these sanskaric forces in ourselves, and sometimes they overpower me every day. And that is why I have practices that I do, like writing Baba letters and letting Baba write back to me, because these things they're so fixed and strong that they are very real forces in our lives. And I've studied this for years, both as a psychotherapist and as a recipient of psychotherapy. I've watched those movements in others, and I observe them every day in myself. And I think what helps is to allow ourselves to experience them in all their sometimes ugly forms, and to see the things we're driven to do and the regrets that we have about them, but to giving them a voice too. And this is what I do in my writing practice. If I have something that's particularly difficult for me, one of my difficulties is letting other people support me. Okay, help me when I feel vulnerable. And saying yes to those offers instead of no. My tendency would be to turn into myself, and I say, that's not what Baba wants of me. He wants me to let myself receive. And if I can let myself receive from others, I can be more open to him and the infinite grasp or expressions of his love force. So I think sometimes as Baba lovers, we want to be all loving and light, but we can't be, because we have these other forces in our psyches. And that's why I've studied Carl Jung. So to anybody that really wants to go in depth, I'd say read Jung. Read his autobiography for starters. And I'm inspired by the depth work that he's done. It gives me the courage to look in my own heart and mind. So I think it has to do with this, with looking at what we are given and looking at the ways we suffer and finding a kind opening to those parts of ourselves that we would just love to hate. But if we hate them, we'll never learn to work with them. And so we have to love them too. I love the Rumi poem, Guest House. I was actually going to finish with that, but we're sort of short on time. But the idea.
No, sorry to interrupt you, Evie. You can. We have time.
Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna read you the last paragraph of this book chapter I wrote for Laurent's book on surrender, because it kind of speaks to Jeff's question. When I calculate how many times my heart has broken open, I realize that each time is yet another opportunity to feel the pain, to listen to its voice, to love it, and to hold it as a path to finding my goal, to embracing love. A Rumi poem describes this attitude aptly. He likens the self to a guest house with many unexpected visitors, some of whom are not exactly welcome because they are difficult to tolerate. He suggests that these unexpected guests should all be welcomed, since perhaps their presence is functioning as a guide from beyond, helping me to wake up and to fulfill Baba's mission, which was not to teach, but to awaken.
We'll ask Michelle to share her question.
Yeah, your voice is a bit better now. Thank you very much, Evie. I was really touched by your humanness and your share, your transparency in your shares. And I learned a new thing about surrender, because I was thinking about it as surrender to Baba's will. But actually, what you're showing through what you talked about, what I understood, that keep surrendering ourselves, keep surrendering everything in us to Baba all the time, keep surrendering our pain and our good things and our bad things, and just I saw it as differently. I saw it as something that surrender to Baba's will. If Baba wants me to do this, to do that. But actually what you're saying is what Anava showed you and taught you, is to keep giving to Baba and keep giving to Baba. And I like the letter thing. And I like that you get the answers also and you read them out. So, and I liked what you did with all the letters to your father, and that you put them in plants, and that you grew green things and beautiful things out of them. So it's very, very touching and very beautiful. So thank you very much for your journey and for sharing it with us.
You're welcome. Hey, Baba.
Jai Baba. Do we have anyone else who would like to ask any question? Okay, we don't see any hands up. So thank you, Evie, for being there. Thank you so much for all the wonderful sharing. And
You're welcome. Thank you for
with
inviting
all
me.
from, with all from the EastWest Satsang, lots of Baba love to you as well. And now we'll have dear Jack, who would like to share his offering to Baba. Yes, Jack, may we have you?
Yeah, we're here.
Thank you.
Thanks for that wonderful talk. You lived up to your title of professing.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Appreciated. Oh yeah, it's funny. I think they call me a poet, and I realize that all of us are poets. And I mean, mine came from just writing stuff down, and then eventually it delved into myself being a poet, I guess. I don't know. But the point that she made is very, very, very valid. If you do write things down, it makes a difference. And hopefully everybody will someday get to that point of what the Sufis say, be in the world and not of it. So anyway, I have a lot to thank for, a roof over my head and food to eat. And for me, that's another day in paradise. Oh, beloved, what a strange place this is that I find myself in. Caught between two worlds, both as if they'd never been. All this occurred in an eternal flash that left perception dim, as you stole my heart and left me out on illusion's limb. Unwanted and alone, left to finally play my part in trying to follow your wish and eternal whim. What has become of me since then, this undeserving and ignorant pretense of a human being who really doesn't know from where or when, whose forceful mind veils his heart from love's beseeching? Oh, beloved, he knows it's all your created whimsy, but he's caught in the web of Maya's tangled snare, strung between Eden's limbs, all of which are rather flimsy, and desire's apple in front of his face, swinging in the air. If this world is your paradise, forgive me, for I struggle hard to see, because my mind refuses to relent, and my heart's caught in a vice. This lump of bone and flesh constantly tries to prevent your love from finally releasing me. So in your paradise, another bend, marking time and taking up space, knowing full well it's up to you to send this losing game, who am I, that faces me and the rest of the human race. Oh, Ambrose, you're such a silly fool, and oft times tickle my fancy. But I do have one particular piece of advice, that to ignore would be awfully chancy. Just keep loving me, loving me, loving me, and every day will always be another day in paradise. Thank you. All right, back to you guys. Someone's having
Thank
trouble
you,
with that.
Jack. Thank you, Jack. We have Rosalie who would like to ask something, maybe, or share.
this helped me get to the technology. You know, I was like really finding no charm in present 21st century, you know, with all the, but, you know, I had to think of the goodness of it. But I can actually, every morning I can see Baba moving around on film. I mean, there's been no time when we've been able to see the avatar on film after he drops his body. There's only people's impressions, they're painting, but they put a little bit of themselves in that, and I like to just see it right off, you know. I mean, it's wonderful to be inspired, of course. But anyway, it's good to see you, Lindy. I do remember you from dear old California.
That's right.
So you're living in Asheville?
I am. Are you in LA still?
No, my
Where are
God.
you?
But Baba uprooted me. And for 22 years, I've been asking, why do you have me here, Baba? I'm very near the spiritual center
Oh,
in Myrtle Beach. Oh yeah, this is my 22nd year. And, you know, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing that I've complained 22 years about why did you move me here? But it's funny, you says, you know, write, get a letter, no answer.
well,
No answer.
Baba hears all of our complaints.
That's true, yeah, but, you know, it is kind of
He hears
funny.
them all whether we want him to or not.
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing that I share with strangers even. It's from Baba speaking mystically through Norina Machiavelli. And the very day that Adele Walcom was taking off for other parts, this line, I got this line and I thought that is just, love makes fast progress through its unbroken action of divine light. And I, you know, I mean, I could be talking to it. Love makes fast progress through its unbroken action of divine light.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I thought that's what's happening. But, you know, where are we in it? You know, and I especially loved that thing about Eric saying, you know, like be present. You can love, you know, you don't. And it's interesting when you want something to be over, whether it's a pandemic or the whatever, when you want something to be over, and of course it's very big because the pandemic is worldwide. Everyone's sharing that. I just want it to be over, you know. And I want to whatever. I want to do this or that. And I you know, it's like, it's almost like the grass always looks greener, you know. But I associate this with, you know, Baba coming to United States, bringing Mara, having Mara's corona cracked open. I mean, it's just like no accident that we here in the United States, it's very important. Democracy is very important.
Hey, Rosalie,
Yeah.
is somebody just typed this in? Roshani,
I did.
love makes fast progress through its action of divine light.
No, through its
Who's that?
unbroken action.
Through it? Could you repeat it, Rosalie?
Yeah, love makes fast progress through its unbroken action of divine light.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so Rosalie just did a share. Maybe it took you deeper into yourself or maybe away from yourself. So I want to just remind you, put your hands together. Feel the pressure between your palms touching each other. And let that be a reminder to you to refocus yourself internally.
Mm.
And just take a look at your palms and just a little bit, feel the pressure of them, and know that it's in that space that you re-find yourself each moment. And that the outside of your hands it's the rest of the world. So find your center once again. Find the parts of you that you connected with today during the last hour. And just breathe into that. And ask yourself, wow, where do I carry that in my body? And notice that too. And just take a full breath and let it out completely. Good. So let's see, Roshani. Shall we end on that note, or is there?
Yes. We have Meher whose hand is up. Meher, you want to ask something?
Yeah, can I? When you this thing, fold your arms and then you suddenly open it, Baba is sitting on our arms. This is to me. I wanted to say,
Okay.
Jai
All right.
Baba.
Yay, Baba, thank you. And it looks like Havovi might be on. And I don't know if that's
Yes.
Havovi, but Havovi, Jay Baba.
Yes. Habovi Auntie Jai Baba. She was there some time back.
Oh,
Yeah.
there. Oh. And Hoshan.
Habovi Auntie, your camera.
Oh. Jay Baba to both of you. I have such fond memories of you in India.
Roshani, your audio is not good.
I don't know what has happened because it was good all along. Suddenly, I can't figure out because nothing has changed as such.
I
Like,
think when you
hasn't
came
improved.
more forward, it was better.
Okay. All right. Apologies for that. Habovi Auntie, your camera is shut.
Oh, there they are.
Now it's on.
Unmuting. Okay. Share.
Oh, there you are, Havovi. And Hoshang. Jay Baba.
Yeah. Evie, since you're
Oh,
Jai Baba, darling.
oh, Jay
Remember you
Baba,
from the
it's
good
just
old
lovely
days?
to see you both. Wow.
Can you all hear me? Hello?
A little bit.
Little bit. I don't know how I go about it. Okay. Hello. Sure. Mute? Am I? Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's a little broken. But yeah.
Broken. Yes.
Yeah. Annabelle would always tell.
I think we've lost the connection.
Flat tire. Flat tire on the blue
Yeah.
bus.
Ah, yes. So we have Vijayji who is here after a long time. Vijayji, would you like to sing a song for us before we close and move towards the Meher Dhun and our Australian Aarti?
Yeah, Jai Baba, Roshani. I thought I will listening out anyway. So thank you, Ivy. So nice to hear from you. And yeah, well, it turns out to be like a classroom. I thought I will listen to your beautiful story. And that reminds me of Simav's ghazal. Simav, who Baba gave him liberation. अब क्या बताऊं मैं तेरे मिलने से क्या मिला इरफान गम हुआ मुझे. Simav says कि what shall I tell you what I got after meeting you. I felt the pain in my heart and I got the address of my heart that, oh, there is a heart. Because of pain, I came to know that there is a heart in me. So that pain leads to that heart and that inner internal contact with the real, that love leads to the real love, ishke hakiki. So I sing this ghazal. Yeah. अब I will, okay. अब क्या बताऊं मैं तेरे, अब क्या बताऊं मैं तेरे, मिलने से क्या मिला, अब क्या बताऊं मैं तेरे. मंजिल मिली मुराद मिली, मुदवा मिला, मंजिल मिली मुराद मिली, मुदवा मिला, सब कुछ मिला मुझे जो तेरा, सब कुछ मिला मुझे तो तेरा, नक्श पा मिला, अब क्या बताऊं मैं तेरे. खुद बिन जो खुद शनास मिला, खुद नुमा मिला, खुद बिन जो खुद शनास मिला, खुद नुमा मिला, खुद बिन जो खुद शनास मिला, खुद नुमा मिला, इंसा के भेष में मुझे, इंसा के भेष में मुझे अक्सर खुदा मिला, अब क्या बताऊं मैं. क्यों ये खुदा के ढूंढने वाले हैं नामुराद, क्यों ये खुदा के ढूंढने वाले हैं नामुराद, गुजरा जो मैं हुदूदे, गुजरा जो मैं हुदूदे, खुद से खुदा मिला, अब क्या बताऊं मैं तेरे. सीमाब को शगुफ्त ना देखा तमाम उम्र, सीमाब को शगुफ्त ना देखा तमाम उम्र, कम वक्त जब मिला हमें, कम वक्त जब मिला हमें, गम आशना मिला, अब क्या बताऊं मैं तेरे, मिलने से क्या मिला, इरफान गम हुआ मुझे, दिल का पता मिला, अब क्या बताऊं मैं. जय बाबा. थैंक यू रोशनी जी, थैंक यू आईवी जी.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Thank you so much, Vijayji.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Is my audio
I
better? I don't know what
yeah.
Baba
How
is up to, but
was the audio
all right.
was
So we
not
will just close our wonderful East-West Saturday Satsang with Meher Dhun and the Australian Aarti.
Meher Baba, 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 Meher Baba. Meher Baba, 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 Meher Baba. Meher Baba, 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 Meher Baba.
अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय।
Oh, glorious, eternal, ancient one, your face is a bright, transcendental sun. Lighten this dark world and the tears I weep. My heart, Meher, I give to you to keep. Create victorious creationless you are. Truth and truth's body, divine avatar. Through compassion the three worlds maintain. Destroy this ignorance that life sustains. These five lights are the whirling strokes of breath of the world's wheel that bears me unto death. Unless you are infinitely kind, break the wheels of which is conditioned mind. This incense is my love, these fruits my art, which to please you I have shaped from my heart. Accept them as you would a simple flower that has no use beyond its shining hour. You are myself, I sing to you in praise, and beg your love to bear me through the day. Till you, the ever-living perfect one, illume my darkness with your shining sun.
Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. We'll have 1 minute of silence. अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय। अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय। अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय।
Everyone, please unmute and we'll say Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai 3 times. Avatar
Meher Baba
Ki
Ki
Jai.
Jai.
Avatar Meher
Meher
Baba
Ki
Ki
Jai.
Jai.
Avatar
Meher
Meher
Baba
Baba
Jai.
Ki Jai.
Thank
Jai
you,
Baba.
Baba.
Jai Baba.
Thank you, Baba.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Baba, beautiful people.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Roshani, and thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you, Roshni.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Evie.
Thank you,
Thank
Roshni.
you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Baba.
Roshni.
Thank you, Baba.
Roshni.
Thank you, Baba. Thank you, Baba. Thank you,
Thank
Baba.
you, Baba. Thank you,
Good
Baba.
night and good day, everyone. And
Jai Baba.
happy